in here. Yeah.
So,
if it hadn't been for them, you guys would have nothing. Yeah.
Again, what she's saying and what we've decided to do, because we're recording this, is that her concern is that the council people, when they get here, just do what they want to do. And my response to that is, that's why we need to change this. As you're going to see when we get the powers of the council has the power to do all of those things. And yes, I agree with you. Council people as representatives should be concerned about what they vote, what they campaigned on, and who elected them. But like I told you, the truth is, when council people, I don't care who they are, when they get there, they realize we got the power. And so we're going to come to that here in a minute, about what the council does when we talk about removal here in the next section. But so right now, you're talking about, we're saying the council could pass it, because it says right there, the council has the power to do this. That's not me saying that. That's the Constitution that we all live under. It says right here, the council shall have the power to establish communities and the basis of representation from the council.
Listen to what you're saying, and that you guys can just go do what you feel like wanting to do. Now that's not what you're supposed to be doing. You guys got to look out for the people, not for yourself.
Well, that's why we had to...
up there, if you had any sense, or any one of you, you guys would be doing something with other tribes and fighting the government on abuse, everything what they done to our ancestors. Right today, we won't have to pay nothing.
Well, again, that's why we need to change this document, because that's what it allows the council to do. So let's talk about what the powers of the council are, because that's one of the reasons we had the conflict. It says the tribal council shall elect from its membership a chairman and vice chairman. So the chairman that we elect, they're not the chairman of the tribe, they're the chairman of the council. Then it says the council shall elect from within or outside its own membership a secretary and a sergeant at arms and other officers and committees as deemed necessary. So once again, in response to your point, that's why we have to do this, because this is the document that we run under. And in response to what you said, about 3 months ago, everybody there, except the ones that were already there, they swore an oath to uphold this document. So this is the document that gives them the power to do just what you're talking about. So if you don't want them to have that power, that's why you need to change this document. We can't change it ourselves. So there's a way to change it.
Can say that they can do these things and they can make them the way they want them to be. The government can do what they want, and this is what they're doing, and they're making you guys think differently. Now you guys got to be smart.
Well, no, you know, I'm a person who's known for thinking for themselves. So the government doesn't tell me how to think. That's why we're going through this document, and we're looking at what's wrong with it so that we can change it to make sure that those things don't happen. So this is our section on elections and nominations. We all know how we elect people. We amended that this last time to go to 4-year staggered terms. Now, the council didn't do that. The people did that. But as we talked about last time, the government, because it runs amendment elections, they made everybody register to vote. And of the people that registered to vote this last time, just a little over 900 actually voted on going to 4-year staggered terms. And of those 900, about little under 600 voted in favor of it. And of those 600, 300 came from off the reservation. So if you don't like what's going on here, then you have to get involved, and when the time comes, you have to register and vote. And that's why we have these staggered terms that we have today, because the off-reservation people gave them to us. The people on the reservation didn't vote for 4-year staggered terms. and compared to the people that voted against it, we would have killed it. And if the people on the reservation, the off-reservation people, is who registered to make that election legal. So that's how we do that. And this just tells us that we're going to serve our 4-year staggered terms, and we're going to have an election every 2 years. The 2 candidates with the largest number of votes advance, and we have a general election. It tells us when we start doing that. The other thing that we came to that we had dispute with the Bureau about says all elections shall be by secret ballot. Any member of the tribe 18 years of age or older eligible to vote when he presents themselves can do that. Goes on to say, Section 7, all elections shall be held in accordance with rules and regulations laid down by the council or by an election board appointed by the council. Now, is there anything after that language that says, provided, however, that the Bureau of Indian Affairs has to approve the selection of the election board? There isn't, is there? So in this last election, when our agency superintendent took the position that the election board had to be approved by them, she was wrong. That's not in our Constitution. It's not one of the things that is subject to BIA approval anymore. But they took the position that it was. So then the next section that we have is vacancies and removal. Now remember when we looked at our first Constitution, it just had that Section 1. If a council member shall die, etc., then the council will elect a person to fill the unexpired term. That person has to be a resident of that district. Then we added these 2 sections. Actually, there's 3 sections. And then we're going to talk about why we need to change the Constitution. Section 2, the tribal council can expel a member for cause by 2/3 or more of the members of the council voting for expulsion. Before any vote is taken on such matters, the members shall be given an opportunity to answer any charges at a designated council meeting, and a decision of the council shall be final. Any member of the council convicted of a felony in court or for which they haven't received a pardon or restoration of their civil rights shall be ineligible to hold council office, and any tribal member officer found guilty of the council of gross neglect of duty, misconduct reflecting on the dignity of the tribe or the tribal council, habitual drunkenness, or repeated absences from functions shall be expelled and shall be barred from holding office. Now let's be real honest. The last 2 years, that all started right after in September of 2012. And in September of 2012, 4 members of the council voted to expel 5 members of the council. And that's when this all started. So if that's the law, then how could 4 members of the council vote to expel any other member of the council? They couldn't. And then once again, but they couldn't go to court because the court had said, oh, that's in the power of the council, so we can't review it. And so there was no checks and balances left to do that. So the other 5 members, or 4 of them, retaliated by suspending the 4 members who had done that. Now let's stop right there. Does anybody see the word suspension in there anywhere? It doesn't say that. But once again, the court said, oh, those are in the power of the council, so we got no authority to act on it. So there was no checks and balances. There was no place to go to say that group is not doing right. you tell them what to do right, and you uphold the law. Because the court said we got no power over the council. So one of the things in the 2008 referendum, and I just looked at that before I came over here, was separation of powers. And that's what that means.
They fired Dawn from the being chief judge because she wouldn't do what they wanted them to do. So they just fired her and put in a yes person.
Well, that goes back to there's no separation of powers. That's just what I said.
The court says they can't do nothing.
So it said right here, as we looked at, and we'll jump ahead to it, but we're going to come back to that later. It says the council has the power to promulgate ordinances for the purposes of safeguarding the peace and safety of the residents of the reservation, and to establish courts for the adjudication of claims amongst members, and for offenses and trial and punishment of members charged with offenses. Doesn't say anything there about a separate court. That's why the council can do that. And let's be real honest, she wasn't the first judge to have that happen to her. Many judges over the years have been subject to that because the council said, we don't like what you're doing. You're voting, you're acting against us. You won't release my cousin from jail. And so I'm gonna bring that to the council and we're gonna remove you. So how do you stop that? You stop it by having a separation of powers. Now here's another thing, going back to a council about, actually it was the council that Pat Schelt sat on before they removed him. The people in when they adopted this in 1998, that amendment, they put in this provision. Upon a petition of the tribal council to the tribal council by at least 20% of the total eligible voters of the tribe, a recall election shall be held within 30 days of submitting petition to the council to determine whether the council shall be recalled and removed from office. The vote of majority of the qualified voters in a recall election shall be conclusive and binding. If the majority of the voters in a vote to recall a member, the member shall be recalled and removed from office, and upon certification of the vote by the election board, the certification of the recall shall occur within 72 hours. If a majority of the voters voting in that recall election vote not to recall, the council members shall continue to remain in office and perform the duties and responsibilities of a member of the council. Well, I recall in 2006, a group of people came in and presented a petition to the council members that were in office at that time. And they asserted that that petition represented 20% or more of the eligible voters of the tribe. And they said, we want to recall the whole council, period. And so let's stop right there. Now, does that provision say when that petition is presented that the election board shall review it and determine whether it's accurate, and if it is, then they'll call a vote? Doesn't say that, does it? It says the tribal council shall do that. Doesn't say the BIA shall review that, and if they determine that 20% of the voters signed, they'll make the council have an election, or they'll call an election. It says the council shall do that. So if you're worried about the power of the council, then change the Constitution. Because here's what the council did with that petition. They took it and they went over to the trash can and they threw it in the trash. And that's as far as it went. There was never a vote on that petition. Now there was a lady just this past time, Anna Bulsha, spent a lot of time. Remember, you saw her parked down there on the street gathering signatures to try to get to 20% of the eligible voters to have a recall election of the whole last council, every one of them. Did that happen? It didn't. Why didn't it happen? Because the council is responsible for doing that. It doesn't say that that petition shall be presented to the election board, and the election board shall have the power to call it. Doesn't say that it'll be presented to the court, and if the court finds that 20% are met, the court can call an election. It does not say that it can be presented to the BIA, and if the BIA says, yet there's 20%, they can call an election. It says the council should do those things. And if the council don't want to do those things, it won't. And the bottom line is, because there's no separation of powers, then the people can't do anything either. So that's our election process.